Wonderful Vanessa Holding from Arc and Crown. She's the co-owner and executive producer at Arc and Crown Media, award-winning corporate video production company here in Canada. She helps companies engage, educate, and inspire audiences with the power of video. Arc and Crown also aids clients through coaching, post-production, editing, enhancing the self-recorded content. And with all that said, Vanessa, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction, Bernie. And so happy to be here today with all of you, talking about how to attract clients with do-it-yourself video. So before we dive into this topic, I wanted to show you our reel so you can see a little bit of what I do mostly on my day-to-day. You face a time where it's easier than ever to create content, yet more difficult to capture the attention of your audience. No matter if you're in learning, marketing, or communication, all business is show business. With video storytelling, we help you engage, educate, and inspire. We simplify complex information and communicate important messages in a way that gets attention and compels action. We are Arc and Crown, your guide to great video. So as you can see, I'm a video producer. We produce high quality corporate videos. However, even before the pandemic started, we were looking for a way to help clients that maybe don't have the budget always to create something flashy. And there's obviously more and more of a need for that nowadays, especially with social media and just this constant world of constant content that we want to put ourselves out there and showcase what we're good at and how we can help our target audience. So for me, as I'm, in the B2B space, LinkedIn was where I, focus most of my, digital marketing attention. And before the pandemic, I was posting stuff and mostly creating more polished videos because I'm a video producer, right? I got to put out really nice, polished videos. But when the pandemic hit, I realized I just need to be putting out more content. I need to be providing a lot of value to my target audience. So I decided to commit to posting a video a week. And that's what I did. And I started growing my audience on LinkedIn over a 2-year period predominantly. And this is the type of content I was posting early on.
One of the things that's really jarring when you're watching a video or even on video chat is bad framing. Case in point. Now, most of you can probably identify what's wrong with this frame. There's way too much headroom going on around here. It's really just not needed, and it does distract away from the speaker. Okay, so much better, right?
This was a really simple concept. One thing that we focus on in video production is framing. And so when you see the video, it starts out, I'm kind of small in frame, and a lot of people actually that caught their attention because they noticed right away it was bad framing, and they know me, why is this video producer putting out something with bad framing? So they started watching and kind of hooked them. And then, simple snap of the fingers, I'm now in good framing and teaching people a little simple trick of the trade, so to speak. And what I found was this type of content over the more highly produced content I was doing previously actually gained a much better traction on my social channels. And one thing that I really love to point out is that this video in particular got 77 reactions. So that's people, liking it or applauding it or whatever those little reactions are. It did get a good number of comments, which is really important for engagement, and shares is also important. But if you look down here, it got 1,100 minutes of lifetime views at the time that I screenshotted this, which was actually maybe even a year ago when I did this presentation and started it. And that means that there's either a significant number of people that just watched a few seconds of it, or there's still hundreds of people that maybe watched to completion. Unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't provide those exact statistics, but we get a good sense that there's a lot of people here who are watching and not engaging. And that is something that I learned a lot over the last couple of years, because tons of people in my network started reaching out to me and giving comments, people that I knew, but then also people that I maybe added to LinkedIn because I met them once, but never really kept in touch. And years later, people are reaching out saying, hey, Vanessa, can we have a chat about some work I have going on? Are you free for a chat about a need? I've been loving your content, telling me about what they've been doing. Would you like to be a guest in my podcast? I just watch your tips. And I also got emails from, again, people who never engaged with my content on LinkedIn, but they're watching, and then they would come to me in a separate channel like email and tell me, oh, I love the stuff that you're putting out. So I think that's also really important for people to realize, especially early on, when you start putting out content and you might only, get a little bit of engagement, know that there's a lot of people that are seeing your content, but they might not just be the type that will be super active on a social platform, but they are seeing it. And if you stay consistent and do good work, you will start seeing results. And I certainly saw results both in my corporate work, which was, just getting more video leads and actually doing like animation and live action type content. But I also started coaching and teaching people how they could, put themselves forward. So I would do it over Zoom, and then they would put out videos similar to mine in style and sort of scope. And that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about today, to hopefully encourage you and inspire you to maybe get out there and post some of your own video content. So the other thing I wanted to mention is, I was creating my videos predominantly for a LinkedIn audience. And I think that's important because I knew who my target audience was and what my purpose was. I wanted to provide value through these tips videos, but I would also post the content on YouTube. I would publish them on my website's blog. I actually also created a specific page on my website at the time called Quarantine Series that people could go to on my website. I think this is another part of the website, and then on other social channels. Oh, sorry, this was an email blast that we sent out. So I also was doing it, getting people to sign up for my list, which I did. I encourage people to do at the end of my videos, and then would get them to watch them through the email list. So all of this to say that you can capitalize on the content you create, put it in multiple channels, use it for SEO purposes, and really make the most of the content that you do put time and attention into. So step number one when creating content is to realize that you're not going to just be able to create one piece of content and, then you're going to get hordes of people. It is a repetitious project that you need to be committed to. And, whether you're posting once a day, once a week, once a month, in my case, in my social platform that I was focused on, LinkedIn, once a week was a great amount. And I found that it worked really well for me. But, again, it depends on your business and the social platform, but just create a plan. Know that you're going to, on Mondays, write your script. And on Tuesdays, you're going to carve out an hour to do your filming and what have you. It is a process, and you need to, invest in that. Just like anything in your business, you're going to invest. Step number two is creating a content plan. So there are a couple kind of key categories that I encourage people to think about. So number one is educational. I think obviously we all know this is a great strategy, share your knowledge, become a thought leader in your space, and attract people to you. Number two is a case study, which is kind of educational, but almost like hidden promotional value, because you're saying, hey, this is what I did for a client. This was the end result. This is, what we got out of it. And you're basically promoting your services and telling somebody else what you could do for them if they're in that similar shoes. But you can also position it as more like educational, giving them tips and ideas and what they could do as well. And then the last thing I think that's also nice to sprinkle in there is some fun stuff, maybe behind the scenes, like bring us into your world for people that, it might not be the mainstay of what they do, but they might potentially need your services. Show us what your culture is like, or, some of the ways that you work, or, take a picture of you when you're doing your job, and, incorporate that into your video. So those are some things to think about. So in terms of one particular style of video, which is what I predominantly focus on, I call them thought leadership style videos. And again, this is becoming the expert in your field, putting yourself out there, adding value, and getting people to want to come to you because they see you as a leader in that space. So the most important thing is provide valuable advice. I see too many people creating video content that says, hey, this is what I do. This is what I can, offer you. once in a while, sprinkling in more promotional content, I think is good. And I also think at the end of every video, I'd always do a plug, what we call a call to action. So encourage them to visit your website or contact you or whatnot. But your video content shouldn't be known for only talking about your services and what you provide. It really should be about how can I help? So that person wants to see your video every week or every month, whenever you put them out, and be like, oh, I'm going to get a nugget in here that is going to be interesting and help me in my business or life or whatever, you know, you focus on. Well, step number 2, very similar. It's ensure they have actionable advice. And I think, you know, a lot of people, when I work with them, they think they're maybe giving away too much for free. But I always say that, you know, the person that's going to take your advice and go run with it themselves, they're not your target audience anyways. You're targeting the person that needs assistance, is going to see your stuff. Maybe they will try and do some pieces themselves, but then they're going to realize that, oh no, you know, this person is an expert and they really know what they're doing. I want their help. And that's what I've certainly found over the years. And the last tip here is try not to include too much information. I think that's something that we can certainly get bogged down by. And again, depending on the social platform, I'm talking particularly about LinkedIn here. I found that a few minutes is an okay sort of range. If you do something that's 15 seconds on LinkedIn, I mean, how much valuable advice can you provide in 15 seconds, unless it's like one really, really short tip? But, you know, typically around the 2 to 3 minute mark, I found works well, that, you know, you're getting enough content in there that you're really providing something that somebody didn't know before and they're going to take it with them. This is sort of the formula that I will use for, again, thought leadership style videos. So step number 1 is create a hook. You obviously want the very beginning of your video, when somebody is scrolling and it starts auto playing, that's where you want to capture their attention. So often great to ask them the question, hey, are you struggling with X? Or make a big offer. I'm so excited to share with you this new thing that I just found, or something like that to get them interested. Then you typically want to identify the problem. So lay out the issue your target audience is facing. You then set up the solution and outline your tips. And typically, you know, it could be one tip that you just go into detail about, or you could provide, you know, 3 quick tips or something like that. Or even, I mentioned here, it even could be a story that kind of exemplifies the problem and solution that that you see. And then lastly, as mentioned, you always want to end with a call to action, because if somebody actually completed your video and watched it all the way through, then you have an engaged audience member that you want to make sure you're not losing, but you're bringing them to that next step to reach out to you more or engage with other content that you have. So this is a quick outline of one of my scripts. I don't think I have too much time to go into detail today, so I think we'll skip over this for now, but you can kind of see how long, you know, often my scripts were, and how I, you know, at the very beginning, my hook is, so you started to make video content, but are you making the most use out of it? So something like that for the person who maybe is my target audience, because they're making video content, but they want to level up, and that's what I'm here for. So that's kind of an idea that you can think about in your industry, in your niche, and what can you do with your content in this sort of a format. So now going into filming with a smartphone. So this is something that the way that I do it, and I typically recommend, because nowadays smartphones are such good quality, so we can all be filming in HD. A lot of our phones also have 4K. I wouldn't recommend using 4K because it's really just, the quality is not necessary, and it's really large files that you probably don't want to deal with. So yeah, so filming with a smartphone, the main things to keep in mind, course, filming horizontally, unless, again, maybe Instagram is your mainstay, and you want to have that vertical video that takes up the whole screen of a mobile phone. But again, know your audience, know your target destination that you're pumping these out on. But for me, and putting in all the different platforms I was putting it in, I felt horizontal made the most sense. And what you're going to want to do is make sure that you are filming in HD. So depending on if you have an Android or a smartphone, there's different settings, but you want to navigate to your video settings on your phone and make sure you're recording in HD, which is 1920 by 1080, as well as 30 frames per second is sort of the standard frame rate that you can use. So those are kind of 2 little settings to look for. In terms of gear, this is what I have always used. So a ring light is your best friend and the most important tool that will level up your production game. So again, your smartphone, you all have one. The ring light is actually 3 parts. I maybe should have redone this visual, but the ring light itself is the big circle light in the middle. The stand comes with it on the right, and then the smartphone mount also comes with it. And this one in particular, it's a Niwar off of Amazon. I think it was like $180. You can get much smaller ones for like $10 off Amazon that you can even attach to your computer if you're going to use a webcam, which we'll talk about in a second. But again, my setup, I've always had a ring light with a phone mount that you just plug your phone into. I've always used my phone not in selfie mode, but the reverse camera. And that way you can get the higher quality camera, but it's sometimes easier to film in selfie mode. So that's certainly an option as well. And then I used to use a lav mic. And again, this was something cheap I got off of Amazon for probably like 20, 30 bucks. The professional ones we use are thousands. So obviously a little bit of a quality difference there, but it's still, good enough. And that's really what I stress to my clients. Like, you're looking for professional, you're not looking for perfection with this type of video content. And nowadays that I have a Samsung, a new, Samsung phone, the audio quality is actually quite good on it. And because my phone is so close to me when I'm filming, I just actually use the audio on my phone. The other thing you could look at doing is using a webcam. And I would highly recommend, like in this case, if you have an older laptop or any sort of computer that you're using, getting an external webcam will definitely be night and day and make you look much more crisp and clear, and would be the direction that you want to go. In addition, unlike your phone where you just kind of record directly to your phone, with a webcam, you would be recording to a software like QuickTime, or you could record on a platform like Zoom, although I would do tests and keep in mind that Zoom actually downgrades the quality. So you won't be getting HD, just note that. And then there's other platforms that we use like StreamYard, which is a streaming platform, but you don't have to stream live. You can actually just record in the platform. So those are some ideas. And one of the things that I used fairly early on that really leveled up our game was a teleprompter. I personally am the type that I will talk too fast and over talk when I'm not scripted, and I won't know exactly what to say, and I'll like now have to think and pause and whatever. Whereas when I'm scripted, I come across perfect, right? Because I'm performing and I have a script in front of me. All I need to focus on is saying those words that are already in front of me in, a great way. So you can get a teleprompter app on your phone. I use Nanoprompter on my Android, but I used to use the Joe Allen teleprompter app on iPhone. And on desktop, if you're doing it through webcam, you can use Smart Prompter. And all of these teleprompter apps, I believe, have free versions that sometimes they're watermarked, or they give you sort of limitations with how much words your script can be, but at least you can kind of test it out. And if you like it, I mean, Nanoprompter, I think $5 one-time fee. I think Joe Allen was $30. So they're not expensive. And again, from my perspective, I thought it added a lot of value and sort of professionalism to my content. If you are the type that has a great memory, you might want to script, and then you can just kind of have your points that you look at before and then speak more off the cuff. Or if you're the type that can fully speak off the top of your head, well, congratulations to you, and you're probably great at sales. So good job. Okay, so in terms of looking and sounding your best, as mentioned, the ring light is, I'd say, the biggest game changer. So, when you come across dark and it's hard to see you on camera, that is sort of I think the biggest factor of looking like lower quality. Whereas if you are brightly lit, it's not only flattering, but it just looks more professional. And that's usually what we take a lot of time on set to make sure people look good with good lighting. So if you have a big window in front of you, I'm actually not using my ring light today. It wasn't plugged in when I started, and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go with it. But I typically always use my ring light, especially when I film, but I do have a big window in front of me today. So that's why I'm lit up pretty well, and it's quite consistent and natural. So if where you're going to be setting up and filming in your home office or whatever, and you have a great large window that's not sort of direct sunlight, but you're getting daylight in, then that might be all you need. But if you don't have that, and or if you're maybe filming before the sun rises or late at night, like definitely invest in a ring light, because it will be a great thing to level up your production quality. And then the other things to think about are honestly really small and simple, but a lot of people don't actually do it, which is clean up your background. Like when somebody is watching your video, if you have all these distractions in the background, even like bookcases, I find some people are like, oh, what book are they reading? And they look into it, or, you know, they see clutter in your background and just kind of distracts. So really what you want to do is just, you know, a clean wall, maybe one picture in the background is great, or a simple office setup that you've cleaned up. I've typically created my office space so I can shove everything inside drawers, and it's like all the spaces as sort of clean as possible. Just making sure I'm touching on everything I wanted to here. Okay, wardrobe. So wardrobe is another one that's such a small little thing, but it can make a big impact. I find solid, bright colors just look the most flattering on camera and make you pop, especially if you have a light colored background, wearing a dark piece of clothing or a bright piece of clothing works great, versus if you have a dark background wearing like white or something lighter looks great. But typically colors just like make your face look better and are more flattering. And you want to avoid small patterns, because again, it's just distracting, and sometimes it can even create like a weird effect on camera. Framing, you saw my video at the start. Make sure you're not a small little head in frame, but you're taking up the whole frame, you're being dominant, and you're sort of presenting your best self. And lastly, most importantly, is performance, because every video is an opportunity to show people who you are, and people want to work with people that they like and that come across well. And so feeling like you are acting is important. You really shouldn't be performing like you're just talking to somebody who's next to you. That's not what this is about. This is about putting your best foot forward and being energized and say, I'm so excited to share with you this tip, and I know it's going to work well for you. Like that's what people enjoy watching. It makes them feel energized, feeling your energy through the camera. So definitely pull yourself outside of your comfort zone and give more energy than you're used to. And I guarantee you the results will be fantastic, and you'll get a lot of great comments about that. Okay, I wanted to share this video. This is an example, something we did early in the pandemic. I trained a woman from BDC who is the national women's lead, and her focus is on bringing in more female entrepreneurs into the BDC community. And she lives in Alberta, and I trained her for 1 hour, and this was the result.
Trying to run a business and take care of your family is tough on any day, let alone during a global pandemic. Women faced more challenges starting and growing their business already, and COVID-19 has just shone a light on those struggles. So today I want to share some reasons.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause there. But in terms of this video, all it took was her walking around her house, looking at the different background opportunities that she had, finding something that had a fairly neutral background, so there was nothing poking out of her head. The plant used to be much more further in, but we didn't want a plant sticking directly out of her head. So we just, it's a nice little, texture, but just on the corner. We also we didn't film her flat on the wall. And so it was just kind of more flat and boring, but filmed at an angle. And she had some nice, artwork type of things on the left-hand side there. She wore a nice bright blue shirt, brightened her up. She has a big window in front of her as well as a ring light. She is fully scripted. She's using a teleprompter app and she's filming this on her phone. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of, again, she is somebody that probably does a lot of public speaking. So she's already confident and comfortable in presenting herself, but with a few little tweaks, we were able to get her comfortable and confident in filming from her house and doing a great video series that we created several of.
This is
another example in a completely different direction that I wanted to share, because if maybe you wanted to create something with other people, this could be an idea for you. So we have a client that we continue to work with. They were a startup and then got $22 million in funding. And so now we are producing videos like rapid fire every week for them. And they are using video as a big strategy to grow their business. And this is one of the really early on videos that we did. Their marketing manager actually filmed over Zoom a bunch of their cohorts or students that went through their courses. And so they are not going to be super professional backgrounds or perfectly, dolled up, people or spaces or whatever, but it still worked really well as a sort of promo testimonial video and something to consider as an option as well.
I joined a sales bootcamp because mainly I wanted to try something new. Also find my lane in the tech world.
I've always been interested in technology and they wanted to get into the tech industry. The problem with me, however, is that I don't have as much technical or engineering background. And I felt that sales was the best way for me to get my foot into the industry.
Cold calling, prospecting.
I'm just going to shut off the audio so I can talk through it. So as you can see, they did half an hour long interviews with each of these subjects. And then we pulled sound bites that really spoke to what they wanted to promote about their brand. And as you can see, sometimes the lighting wasn't good. Sometimes the background was really distracting. But in this case, it worked well for their needs, which these are average, everyday people working from home, but learning how to become sales pros in the tech space. And this video is still in use today, a couple of years later, and has served them really well. And we continue on this strategy with them. And we did create like a 2-page document to give them to use that provide all the kind of tips to make sure, most importantly, that in this case, that they got good audio and were able to capture these. Okay, so that's sort of the thinking of content, planning out your content strategy, committing, getting some of the tools that you might need to actually start filming, and then comes editing. So in some cases, you might be able to film your video from beginning to end and you don't need to edit. And you can just post that, especially for behind the scenes, fun type stuff. That's a great strategy. But in some cases, you might want to splice and dice or add in other visuals or have more dynamic text call outs and things like that. And you can always go to a production company, a freelance editor, or a company like ours and get help with that. And that's what we have a number of clients who we do that for on a regular basis. But there's also people who want to make this a regular thing, that they want to be as cost effective as possible. So, so I'm just checking my timing here. Okay, oh, I'm doing pretty well actually. Okay, I'm trying to plow through it. So learning editing might be something that you're interested in. There are so many different platforms out there. Animoto is one where it's all like templated and you just kind of drop things in. It's, I think, more useful for somebody who has a B2C type business and is wanting to put out consistent content that's very like graphic heavy, things like that. Biteable is another one that's like that. And they're both like, I think you pay monthly, it's a sort of subscription model, and they have like tons of assets and music and things like that that you can just plug and play. And that's a great option. But if you're like me and you want to become a thought leader in your space and you want to put your face out there, then you're filming yourself. You are the content. So learning how to do some basic editing is a really great strategy and tool. And then you can have that skill to use moving forward. Again, not only for these style of videos, but you could create more promotional videos that live on your website or you use in your sales process or things like that. So once you develop this, this tool, I guess, you can use it in so many different facets of your business. So with editing, we've personally, researched different ones and found Adobe Rush to be the best of all worlds. So Adobe is, suite of products that you can tap into. If you already have an Adobe subscription to the sort of entire creative suite, you likely already have access to Rush and you might not know it. But I think you can also just buy Rush by itself for a monthly fee. And we personally use Adobe Premiere, which is a very common editing tool in our industry that's for professionals and has a lot of bells and whistles to it. What they basically did was pared that down and made a really simple or simplified editing platform. So this is, oh, let me come back down. Yeah, this is what it looks like. So this, I just wanted to show you kind of what a timeline looks like. So I typically record all of my videos in one take, because again, I'm scripted and I'm on prompter. So I just do it a couple times, get my favorite take, and then bring it in. So that's the video file here. And as you can see, the audio is kind of just below it. They come in paired together, but you can expand it and adjust it if needed. And then really, I did, I guess, 4 main things. I would add in a music file. And what I find so interesting about this is over the last, I guess, 2.5 years since I started creating consistent content on LinkedIn, like video content, I've used the same music track for every single video. And I don't think anyone's ever noticed. And it's a great track. It's really upbeat, but it's so corporate. And it just kind of goes with everything and it energizes the video. I highly recommend using music with video content because I just find it like really keeps the pacing and helps propel and move things forward. And then the other thing that I do is graphics. So you can see the sort of 3 layers of graphics I have. The first one is my, what we call lower third or like title card. So it's not 100% necessary because when somebody sees you on social, they'll see your name and handle there, but I think it adds a level of professionalism and I like to always do it. So I always add in my lower third. This next like long static bar, that is the blue bar in the background. And then all these little boxes are the text. I personally think adding subtitles is a necessity nowadays, not only for AODA compliance, but more importantly, I think it was something like on all social media channels, 80% of people watch video without the sound on nowadays. Like especially most channels, when you're scrolling, the video is just automatically off and you have to go and physically press the button to turn it on. So again, if somebody's scrolling and they see your video and they can read the first line or 2, and that is the hook and that interests them, then they might click on the video, unmute and like watch it in its entirety. You do not have to do subtitles this way. Another hack strategy that I've definitely used in the past, other than paying a company, because there are lots of companies you can pay, like Rev, I think they're called rev.com is one we use for corporate clients, but a hack method is through YouTube. So you can post your video on YouTube and then you can go into the back end and auto generate captions. And then you can either upload your script and time it, or you can use the auto generated captions that they give you and then adjust it because they don't have periods or capitalization or things like that. So you just got to go and like tweak it. And then once it's good, you can download the SRT file from YouTube. And then you can upload that SRT file along with your video file to whatever platform you want, other than Instagram, because I believe Instagram doesn't do SRTs yet, although they're starting to get on the bandwagon with captioning. So that's probably something that's coming if it's not already here. And just another word about editing. I screenshotted this because I thought it was interesting. Again, these were kind of some of my earlier on videos, but as you can see, like the lighting is different in all of them. Even though I was using a ring light consistently, I also had a window there. So even if you look at the backgrounds, you can see that the lighting was a bit different. I changed up my framing at times. So all of that to just say, it's not about perfectionism. Again, it is just about consistency. And, you know, some days it might look better than others, but even as a video producer, I had to get over that because I just felt like everyone's going to be judging me because I do videos for a living. But I realized that really just providing valuable tips and advice, people can, you know, understand that, you know, this isn't Hollywood here. We're really just trying to focus on giving you some valuable tips. Okay, so the other thing that I briefly mentioned in the beginning, but I want you to think about again is where are all the ways that you can use your video once you create it. So there are a couple of different places as mentioned earlier. You can put it on your website, whether that's, you know, your blog, or you can create your own landing page. So when people come there, they can see like a resources section where you know, provide these videos. Maybe they're facts. That's actually a great place to start, even when you're thinking about content creation, is what are all the common questions that clients ask me? I can create a whole bunch of videos just answering those common questions. They can live on my website, and then when people email me a question, I can direct them to the video and save time and energy, and also encourage them to explore the rest of my website and see all the fabulous things that I'm doing. Of course, social platforms, that's a given, but again, think about repurposing it. I do everything for LinkedIn, but then I'll also throw it up on Facebook and sometimes Twitter and other platforms as well. Again, email campaign is a great strategy. Presentations and events, as you've seen in my presentation here, I've incorporated a couple of videos already just to add some spice to it and really show what I am talking about. Email signature is one that people don't always think about, but can be a great strategy to get people to click that you're just engaged with on a sort of day-to-day basis. Partnerships is another really interesting one to think about. So do you have any partners, or you want partners that that you can reach out to and say, hey, I really want to promote what you're up to because I love your service that we use, or what have you. And it can create a really great synergy where you're plugging them in your video, and then they're then resharing your video, and you're really cross promoting each other and kind of getting each other's audience engaged. And that's another thing that I think really helped with my my LinkedIn strategy, was people finding me through secondary and tertiary connections. And then paid ads is another strategy. I think we have somebody in the group here today that can speak to you more about paid ads. But it is something, if you have, again, a particular product or service and you really want to pump it out to the masses, that can be a really great strategy, or even really targeted to a very specific community. I know on social platforms using paid ads, you can be super targeted there. In terms of posting, it is important to note that creating content is step one. Getting it out there and getting it noticed is step two. So when it comes to posting, my personal strategy is I will always post the video on on YouTube, because that's where my videos sort of live. That's where they're housed. And then I can always go back to that link. It's easy to, create playlists. It's easy to search for your videos there. So that's really the best place to have it long term. But social platforms don't love outside links, and they ding them in the algorithms. So if you want to get the most exposure on a social platform, uploading your video directly to that platform is imperative and annoying, because you have to go into Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, to each one and upload the video directly instead of just copying and pasting your YouTube video. But again, it is worth it, and definitely highly recommend it for the algorithm. Another thing to think about when you post your content is the copy that goes with it. So you just diligently wrote the copy for the video itself, but now you need to tease people in the text copy to actually watch the video. And again, if they're scrolling through the feed and they see the above the fold text, which is usually the first line or two, what is it that's going to get them interested? And so questions are always a great place to start. So in this one, I said, do you sometimes feel like you're wearing a mask? Is that necessarily a bad thing? Kind of speaking to people's insecurities, which we all have. And so I think this one, yeah, it did pretty well. And so that's also good to think about, is not having paragraphs of text, but short lines are really good for easy readability and sort of scanning and scrolling through your copy really quickly to see if it's relevant for them. And then this is another idea that I think worked really well, which is not asking what's the term, a question that somebody isn't necessarily meant to answer, but asking a question that you really are looking for their advice or tips on. I always have seen these style of videos with grabby attention titles at the top, and I always felt like they were super cheesy and not maybe the brand or the image that I wanted to convey. So I never did them, but I was like, I'm curious what the audience thinks. So I put this this video together and said, I really appreciate your opinion. And it got one of I think the most comments I've ever gotten on a video, which was 59 comments, and everyone had something to say. People that, again, had never engaged my content in the past wanted to give their opinion on this. So I think it was a really great strategy and worked well to get people engaged. And lastly, my favorite line, because all business is show business, and that's why I encourage you to do video content and to put yourself out there and showcase your personality, showcase what you're good at. You know, we all need to step outside of our comfort zone sometimes, and video is work. It's not, you know, as easy as maybe writing a blog post, because you have to, you know, put yourself on camera, you have to script yourself, you have to do, you know, a lot of little steps in the process. But like I said, it's super worth it. And particularly on a platform like LinkedIn, it's just uncommon. There's not a ton of people that are doing it still. So really, if you get into it now, you're still ahead of the curve. And I know that when I post something on LinkedIn, I will still get people liking and commenting on it like a week later. So what that shows me is that unlike platforms like Twitter, which is a little bit harder unless you have, you know, an engaged audience for people to see your content, because content is, you know, coming and going so quickly. On a platform like LinkedIn for a B2B business, it's a really amazing platform to get people to see your content for a while. So highly recommend you think about it. And yeah, lastly, connect with me on LinkedIn. Certainly always happy to you know, give other tips and advice if you guys are getting into it. Would love to see your videos if anyone is already creating or is planning. And I hope this was helpful and you walked away with something. Again, whether you end up like not professionally, but more like really getting into it and scripting and doing your own videos, or you could just use some of these tips and tricks for when you're on Zoom and video calls and things like that. There are definitely ideas to walk away with, or if you're presenting and you want to use a teleprompter app on your computer, like definitely things that you can use in other places as well.